CBS Evening News anchor and managing editor Norah O'Donnell spoke with Bolton about some of his explosive claims.
You labeled the President of the United States a danger to the Republic. That's quite a charge. How is he dangerous?
Well, I think in the national security field, his decision-making is not anchored in any discernible philosophy. He has no grand strategy.
If the President is such a danger to the Republic, you left office 9 months ago. Why wait so long to let the country know that?
Well, I think it's important to try and explain what I saw in as comprehensive a fashion as I could.
You've been called a liar. The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said that you were left out of meetings because he was leaking, or he would twist things, or he lied.
Yeah. Well, Mike and I obviously have a substantial disagreement here because I think his department was the ace of aces in the government for leaking things. He has made a decision, which is certainly his to make, to tie his political future to Donald Trump. I think that's what he continues to do. I feel sorry for him for doing that, but obviously I'm not going to change his mind.
How would you compare the Trump White House to previous Republican administrations you worked in?
I had never seen anything like it. When you go out sailing and say, we'll know where we're going when we get there, which is what happens all too often in the Trump administration, that's where it can be dangerous for the country.
On North Korea, President Trump is the first sitting president to meet with the North Korean leader, and the president touts this as one of his great foreign policy successes. Is it a success?
No, it's a manifest failure. Trump believes that sitting down with anybody doesn't confer legitimacy on the other side, doesn't give them anything. I think that's dead wrong, and I think in international affairs, countries all over the world were stunned that he was prepared to reward the North Koreans for their intransigent, unacceptable behavior. After 3 meetings with Kim Jong-un, we got nowhere.
Who is the safer choice for America's commander-in-chief? President Trump or Joe Biden?
I'm not going to vote for either one, and it's a question of apples and oranges. It's a very bad election from my point of view. At the presidential level, what I'm going to do is write in the name of a conservative Republican leader.
Well, a write-in is not going to win.
That's true. My plan is to hope for a miracle.
Norah joins us now from Washington. Good morning, Norah. You also pressed Mr. Bolton on the claims that he heard President Trump plead with the Chinese president to help him win the 2020 election. What did Bolton say about that?
Well, there's clearly a lot more to this story that we don't know. Already, Democrats tried to impeach the president on inviting foreign interference in a U.S. election by asking Ukraine for a favor. In Bolton's book, he seems to suggest that President Trump asked Xi to help him win the 2020 election. So I asked the former National Security Advisor directly, what was the explicit ask? Was there an explicit ask from President Trump? And he said he couldn't talk about it. Bolton said because of the vetting process, he had to remove some of the specifics from the book. We know that President Trump said, hey, buy more of our agricultural products, soybeans, etc. But the question is, what specific ask was there? And I think this is a really big story, Anthony, because the intelligence officials that I've talked to previous to this interview are very concerned about foreign interference in the 2020 election, not just from Russia, but also from China. China has huge cyber capabilities. They're an economic powerhouse, no doubt. And so I think that's a big question mark, certainly as we follow this election for the coming months.
Yeah, and the latest polls, Norah, have the president trailing in the election. What did Mr. Bolton say about the president's ability to possibly handle defeat in November?
Well, look, President Trump has already suggested that some elections are rigged. He's raised questions about the legitimacy of mail-in ballots, even though he votes by mail, as does most of the White House staff and those on his campaign. And so the question is, will President Trump contest the election in November? And he said that he probably will. And that sometimes contesting an election is legitimate. Bolton worked on the George W. Bush campaign, but in this particular instance, he said he would hope that if Trump lost, the Republican Party would tell Trump that he needed to leave office, as they did with Richard Nixon. Pretty stunning.
It is pretty stunning. All right, Norah O'Donnell. Thank you, Norah. Tony?